Good evening. I'm Cheryl Peralt, and this is Common Ground Storytelling. And those were the hands of Denise Antaki, who was one of our very first contributors of Common Ground Storytelling back in February. And when Denise heard that our theme tonight was I Get By with a Little Help from My Friends, she just spontaneously shared a little art. And I don't know what her story is, how long she's been playing piano all her life, taking lessons recently. I was just really touched by her sending that because she's excited about the theme, and I am too. And I'll say about Denise is that she told this great story about her intimate relationship with a spider in her house living during the time of COVID, and very up close relationship she had with the spider where she was actually feeding it when she felt it was sick. And it was quite a surprise for viewing, but it wasn't much later that the New York Times printed a very similar story with somebody from New York City. So Denise, thank you for that story that was resonating with other people. I'd like to start by sharing a poem that I found for this last program of the season, and it's to connect with our theme of friendship and helping one another, and it's called Empathy by Morgan Harper Nichols. Let me hold the door for you. I may have never walked in your shoes, but I can see your souls are worn, your strength is torn under the weight of a story I have never lived before. Let me hold the door for you. After all you've walked through, it's the least that I can do. And that is Morgan Harper Nichols once again. I want to, again, welcome you as viewers for joining this last program that we are hosting for Common Ground Storytelling that takes place at HCAM TV studios in Hopkinton, Massachusetts, which is the traditional territory of the Nipmuc lands. I want to greet all of you joining for this first weekend of National Federal Holiday of Juneteenth as well. This is our very last program. It's been experimental on Zoom. Instead of at a cafe or an art center or Healings Art Center or the Zen Mothra office building where I first got started, it's been virtual. And I am very grateful for everybody who's been a part of it and everyone who's been viewing as well. And I just wanted to say that this program is not as much about performance of storytelling, but for making time for the special and important experiences that we have as human beings, for listening and learning and laughing and crying, even from our stories that we have to share as one human family that might serve to bring us closer together. And again, I've loved the whole that this program has been, and I thank Jim Cousins and Mike Tarosian and the crew for their part in the program, for supporting this idea, making it happen with film and technology. And I thank the wonderful participants who are here tonight that usually I know as friends, new and old, or people I've interviewed who've been in one of my programs, or I know as natural storytellers, or I've heard a story from them once. To invite them to record themselves, which is not easy, telling a true story for 3 to 5 minutes on Zoom and send it to me. And then I send it to HCAM TV. The intention is to offer a story that we can feel like we're in one another's shoes, that it might serve to help us to come together, feel connected rather than divided. And then it is up to the storyteller to run with the theme and think of a story to share. And people go everywhere And that's the exciting thing about this program. So with that, I'll say that here's how it's going to work for you if you're first-time viewers tonight. We have 8 of 10 storytellers here with us in the gallery. You can't see them, but they will be arriving very soon to say hello and give you a little preview or say a few words about themselves as introduction. And we will see one storyteller at a time in the lineup. And then the virtual red glittery curtains will open up and you will see their pre-recorded story that I've been receiving maybe in the last week or so, mostly. I even got one maybe 2 days ago, that close. So I thank everybody for helping me at this time. I have scheduled 2 hours tonight as I've been learning that this program with 10 participants takes time. So, of course, if you need to take a break, you can do so, and we'll be here till the end. And I'll just say we'll end up on Mars, kind of, with our story. And each of these stories, again, is 3 to 5 minutes. And one of the expectations is we escort judgment out the door. So the rule is that there are 1,000 ways to tell a story, just like there are thousands of us, billions of us as storytellers, all of us really, right? But no judgment of self or one another in this. And I'm delighted to share the lineup of these 10 stories with you this evening. And just briefly, I will say, as I was sharing the summary today, I'm excited about all the participants. We have a guest storyteller, and just telling you a little tiny bit about them, coming from London, who's a recent college grad. We have a film director who co-produced with Ken Burns, Defying the Nazis, a story about his own grandparents. We have founder of DESI for mothers of children with special needs. We have the host and co-producer of Kelly's Quest and professional disc golf player. We have a playwright, Professor Irish Shaughnessy, and best friend of an Irish wolfhound named Brian, and a poet, publisher, and high school teacher of creative writing and literature from LA, an author, poet, teacher, and great-grandmother from Cambridge, a marketing professional, artist, and poet, and organizer of Art on the Trails, which is opening up now in Southborough, and an author practitioner of myofacial release, and someone from SpaceX in Texas. So we have 10 stories to show with you, and we will get started. Again, the theme is I get by with a little help from my friends. And now I'm delighted to begin introducing you to the participants for this last special program of the season. And I would like to begin now with Alan O'Hare. So Alan, if you could please unmute and join me and say hello to everyone.
I believe I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
I can certainly hear you, and delighted to see you too. Welcome.
Yes, that's great. Thank you.
And I just want to tell folks a little about you, Alan, that you have shared that in thinking about yourself, you're a grateful, curious, inspired resident of planet Earth, learning from all that he encounters every day, and a father to Christopher and Kate, and grandfather to Siobhan. And Siobhan, I'm sorry. And all the wondrous explorers, artists, caregivers, and friends of this world, and a grateful friend and student of many sisters and brothers who have and do transform Alan's life with wisdom, insight, and more. And Alan says that his journey has been learning and sharing through the roles as a Shaughnessy storyteller, psychologist, professor, and founder of Life Story Theater that has toured regionally, nationally, celebrating the mysteries and the miracles of life for 40 years. So, Alan, anything you want to add to that? You know, I wonder, maybe people wondering what is a Shaughnessy, or anything you'd like to offer otherwise about yourself.
Shaughnessy is part of the Celtic tradition, Irish, Scottish, Welsh. It goes back about 1,500 years. And the Shaughnessy was the person that roamed from village to village, gathering the stories of the villagers and just holding them, not writing them down, holding them in his heart, her heart and memory, and then would travel to the other villages, sharing these stories. And the Shanaki linked all the people together through the stories and say, that reminds me of a story I just heard over there. And they count it down, and it's like, and then they go on, and they continually link and each other. And so that's what I do with my life. Yeah.
Well, that certainly sounds like what you do, Alan, as long as I've known you.
It keeps me off the streets and out of trouble.
Yes, well, I think it's good trouble that you always get into, as far as I know about you. And anything else you'd like to share before we get started with anything to set up your story about someone named Brian Boru?
Brian Boru comes from and it's probably in I can't remember what we did in the interview, but it's like Brian Boru he filled a missing place in my life. I was having a very successful life as a lecturer and professor at Lesley University, and my private practice and my family and marriage and all of that. But something was missing. Something was missing in my life. And so then Brian Boru came into my life.
Well, let's hear what the story's about. And I'm just going to.
So it's a joy to be here with you to share the stories of the Shanaki. A Shanaki is from the tradition of the Celtics, going back, certainly back into the 800s, in my knowledge. And the Shanakis were the storytellers. They were the people that kept track of the legends of the Irish in their migration. They came from many cultures, from France, from Germany, from other places. But when they came to Ireland, they didn't fit in. They fit in with the earth as well. They fit in with the grass and the green and all of that. And that's what they fit in with. Things that grew, life that grew. So that was all of what they were about. It was like celebrating life and celebrating the green. And really, it's like bringing life. And so life came to them through story. And it's like the telling of the story. And then in the telling of the story, it was like, it just came about. And the one story that stakes out for me it's the legend of Brian Boru. And this all came about for me. It's like I'm a psychologist by background, and I have had a private practice in Walpole for several years, and it was going well. Then I enjoyed it, and I was going to the schools and doing programs there, and the surrounding schools of Walpole, Wrentham, King Philip, and Norfolk, and all the surrounding towns, and everything was well. And I had a couple of clinicians working under my license, and all of that was good too. But there was something missing. I was in the main street of Walpole, my practice on the second floor of a building, and I would walk up and down the street by myself, and people would know, hey, hello, hello. And I'd go to the bank, and I'd go to the store, and the local store, and everybody knew me, and I liked it. But something was missing. Clients came to see me, and my office was really welcoming, and I had 3 offices and a waiting room, and it just felt good, but something was missing. And so I brought in a colleague who did helping problem solving. And what I realized what was missing was I needed to feel not that only when I was a clinician, but I needed to feel like I was celebrating the stories of life as a clinician, as a person, as a Shanaki. And so he said, what would you do that would be really outrageous, that would draw our attention to you? And I said, the most outrageous thing I could imagine is walking down the center of Main Street in Walpole every noontime, in the center of the main street, backwards, for at noontime, just from one stoplight to another stoplight. So I'd be walking backwards, and I thought that would certainly draw our attention to me. And he said, it certainly would. And so I took that as good advice. And I never did that, actually. But I thought, I need something. And I thought, what else is missing in my life? And what was missing in my life is I always grew up with dogs, but I didn't have a dog in my life. And so I said, I want to find a dog that speaks with me and for me. And so I thought of what's the dog I want, and it was like an Irish wolfhound. I'd always wanted an Irish wolfhound, and somebody brought to my attention there was a woman up in Ashby, Mass, that had a family of Irish wolfhounds. So I went up there, and she had an Irish wolfhound. And I went up there, and there he was, this wonderful, majestic wolfhound named Brian Boru. And that's me. That's me myself at that time. And he came into my life, and that's what he was. He saw my clients and all of that, and that's how he approached clients. He just stood in front of them in peace and just looked right at them. And no matter what their troubles were, no matter what their pain was, he would just sit down and listen to them. And they come into my office and they would talk to me, but he would sit by my chair. And then when a client was really upset emotionally, or angry, sad, or really mostly sadness, he would be by my chair and he would get up from behind and by my chair. He would go behind my chair and walk around the circle and then sit down next to the person's chair and put his head next to them. And then the client was deep in pain and crying, and they would simply reach out their hand and put it on his head. And they would weep and cry and moan and say, and they would just speak all that they were experiencing. And it was just a release, and they felt so safe. And when they finished their story, he would just get up back and walk back around and return to me. And the legend of Brian Boru was he brought people home. He brought people home to who they were.
Thank you so much, Alan. And I thank the memory of Brian Boru as well. And I have been meeting more and more special dogs like Brian sounds to have been in this world. So may we all encounter more in our daily life. Thank you, Alan. And second on our lineup this evening, I would like to introduce Artemis Jukowski. Hello, Artemis. Artemis, are you able to unmute? And also open up video. Are you coming? Okay, might be taking a break. So I will move on and I will introduce next Teresa May-Chuck. Hi, Teresa.
Hi, Cheryl.
Thank you
Hi,
for joining
everyone.
me. Yes, thank you again. You have joined a number of the programs here in Hopkinton on Zoom, a few, and before that, when you would attend the Joiner Summer Institute for Back in Time, where I met you for writing workshops. And I know you're coming from LA this evening, and so I wanted you to come on early before it gets too late. Let's see, you're behind, right? But you have another meeting, right? All right. So I would just like to tell folks a little bit about you. That Teresa was born in Saigon, Vietnam, shortly after the American War in Vietnam, and arrived in LA as a refugee, and has been living in Ha Mo Nha, Pasadena, since the age of 2, as a guest on Tovagar Honba in the LA area, and that Teresa teaches literature and writing at the public high school. I believe you just finished, so congratulations. I know it's been a difficult year. And Teresa is also the author of 3 full-length collections of poetry, Red Thread, Keeper of the Winds, and Invisible Light. And I'm so glad to have you. I don't know if you would like to talk about your story or any projects, what's going on for you in summer.
Okay, thank you so much, Cheryl. It's an honor to be here, and it's always wonderful to share space with you and to see you. And thank you, HCAM, and everyone that's here. I'm really appreciative. And this is just such a beautiful theme, especially for the time that we're in right now. So I'm really grateful for that. So just a little bit about kind of intro to the video. As Cheryl's mentioned, I'm a refugee. I'm from Vietnam after the war. And for us, one thing that really kept us alive was rice. And I remember so many meals where all I had to eat was a bowl of rice and some soy sauce. So that's kind of the value of rice as a relative and a friend to not only to me, but to my family and to so many refugees and immigrants that I know, especially from Asia.
Yeah, thank you for sharing this important story with us, addressing rice, and so glad you could be here for our last program to share this too. So why don't we take a look at Teresa's story at this time? Thank you again, Teresa.
Hi, my name is Teresa May-Chuck, and I'm going to tell you a story about rice. When I was a child, my mother would always tell me to eat all of my rice, and that the farmers worked very hard to gather each rice grain, and that I should not waste food because there were very hungry people around the world and in my native land of Vietnam. So I was very conscious at a young age, the value of rice and the food that I was given, the hard work that went into it. My mother also told me that as long as you have rice, you can survive. So that is something that was ingrained in me, and I ate rice 3 times a day for breakfast, for lunch, for dinner. And here is a bowl of rice. I think that this is a very important story for me, and that I also pass down to my children because it teaches about the value of the foods that we have and how to honor the food and where the food came from and to be grateful. This story that my mother told me was later connected to the history of my people, because Vietnam went through a period of great famine where millions of people died of starvation, and we didn't have rice due to the colonization of our country at the time. And during the American War in Vietnam, the US military had used a chemical called Agent Blue to destroy the food supply, and particularly to destroy the rice fields, because they knew that the rice was keeping us strong and was keeping the people alive. So Agent Blue prevented the rice plants from absorbing water. Rice needs a lot of water to grow. And I think kind of like a symbolism or metaphor for our strength is that rice grains are very, very strong and resilient. Even mortar grenades and bombs can't destroy a rice grain. As long as they can be gathered and planted, they can grow. And I think that is a symbol of our resilience and our strength. Thank you, and I hope you enjoyed my stories about rice.
Yeah, thank you, Teresa. And a story that you shared about your relationship as a friend in a very deep and powerful way, being the bowl of rice that also carries the story of trauma of the Vietnamese people. So I thank you for sharing that difficult and important story with us for this theme. And I know that you, knowing you for a number of years now, you're always involved in some important work in addition to the important work you do with young people at the high school as a teacher. They are so fortunate to have. I would encourage people to take a look at your website also, which is it TU?
Yes, it's TUE-WAI, which are actually my Vietnamese name and my Cantonese name put together.
Right.
Thank you.
Well,
.com.
yeah.
Thank you
All
so
right.
much, Cheryl.
Yeah, and that you have some wonderful books of poetry as well. So thank you, Teresa.
Thank you.
And now I see that I am wondering if I can switch Jaya and Artemis. Is that okay with you, Artemis? All right. Thank you. So Jaya Pandey, good to see you and meet you for the first time on Zoom. I will tell you a little bit about Jaya before we hear from her. Jaya is married to her best friend for 26 years and a mother to two sons, 24 and 21. She lives in Franklin and is a community builder and advocate for special needs family. And she's a storyteller and uses saris as a medium to talk about life. And also is founder of Desi Moms Network, which is an Indian moms of special needs children organization founded by Jaya. So hello, and good to have you share a story and share a little bit more about yourself as well. Would you like to say a few words about being a mother who is dealing with a child who deals with special needs and your network that has been founded?
That would be. Thank you for having me. It's so wonderful to be here with all of you. Thank you for this opportunity. Early on, from my grandmother and my parents, I learned how important it is to have a community and support around you. We call it build a village. And that became my mantra when you move from one country to another. Friends become your family. So whatever you learn early on in life, I think that one specific event I talked about in my story definitely played a big role in my dream and vision for building a community for Southeast Asian families with special needs children. And I feel that you don't have to do anything alone. You know, it is said that it takes a village to raise a child. And that has become my mantra and inspiration. So I'm a dreamer, I'm a visionary. And with you today here with this medium, I want to tell every mother who has a special need child that you are not alone. You just have to build your village. And you will know how some amazing friend inspired me, held me together when I needed that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jaya. And why don't we take a look at her story about a special group of women friends for this theme.
Hello, my name is Jaya Pandey, and I'm very happy and honored to be here with you all. Years ago, when I was a young mom, I thought I had everything: a wonderful husband, in USA living our dream, comfortable life, and two adorable kids. We bought our first home and moved to a new town. Life was just perfect. I decided to go to school and was looking for working full time. My younger son's preschool teacher noticed speech delay and lack of social interaction. And soon our long journey to special need had begun. Few years down the road, he was diagnosed with autism. So much for my perfect world. It took me a couple of years to really get a handle on the situation, or so what I thought. Even today, sometimes I feel I don't know what I'm doing. Anyway, that complex journey for some other time. I became part of many organizations, and in 2013, I got the email from Autism Resource Center about Mother's Retreat. It's a night, 20 hours, special need mothers come together and spend some time together. It's practically a retreat. Without knowing much, I signed up. And the day I reached the venue, and all of a sudden I thought, do I really belong here? Can I go in? Will I fit in? I don't know anyone. And my husband encouraged me. I called him and he encouraged me to go in. And I think that was one of the best phone calls I made. I went in and the checking in was going on. I never knew a single person. When I checked in, I got the deposit back with a smile and an instruction that the money does not go home. It goes to the bartender. I didn't drink much then, but it's one of the best icebreaker I remember in my life. But I think that was the beginning of a new relationship, new friendship. By the night, we all were chatting and dancing together like old friends. My first ever Long Island tea was really, really wonderful and powerful. After all, I was just following the instruction: money to the bartender. I clearly remember telling the person who was sitting next to me, one of the mom, that, someday I just don't feel like doing anything. I feel like running away from all the responsibilities of being a mom. She held my hand and said to call her when I want to do that. She said she will gladly drive me any place I wanted to go. That one moment I realized that I'm not alone. I have friends who won't judge me. Strangely, I didn't even know them a few years ago. When I left the hotel next morning, again, the feeling, you are not alone, stayed with me. I made some amazing friends who taught me what it is to have a non-judgmental relationship. Fast forward a few years down the road, I founded Desi Moms Network for Indian moms with special need children. Inspired by those friends, they taught me life is wonderful, even with some difficulties, if you have amazing friends. How it is to feel you're not alone. They taught me you need to pay it forward. You have to extend your hand and smile, because you might make somebody's day that day. And above all, don't forget to enjoy Long Island iced tea, because sometimes you meet the most wonderful people under its influence. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that great story, an important story of getting together with people going through the same thing, even the challenges of life, finding each other and learning you're not alone. And I know also for your organization, you have a blog as well, right? And a podcast?
Yes, the blog is on my son's name. It's called momlovesanand.blogspot.com. The Facebook group is Desi Moms Network on Facebook. So anybody who wants to, reach out to me, that would be great. If you know somebody, please let them know that they are not alone. I would be happy to help in any way I can.
So, thank you so much for the good work you do,
Thank you.
and carry on with your saris and stories together for the world as well, and the Long Island,
Long Island.
things too. All right, take care. And now, Artemis, good to see you. I would like to introduce you next. Ready?
Ready.
All right, all right. I would like to tell people about Artemis Jukowski. His story is related to his family. He's the grandson of Waitstill Sharp and Martha Sharp, who helped save hundreds of endangered Jews and refugees escape from Nazi invasion. And to honor his grandparents, he co-directed a documentary film defying the Nazis, the Sharps War, along with director Ken Burns. And Artemis also has been vice chairman of Eco Energy International. He is co-founder with Larry Rothstein of No Limits Media, and a member of the US Paralympics team. And he is a co-author of a new book, Raising the Bar, New Horizons in Disability Sports, co-written with Larry Rothstein, where there was a photographic presentation with the UN. Is that right? All right. Well, thank you for being a part of this program this evening. I know there's always something interesting going on in your world, in your work, or whether you're playing wiffle ball in your yard. So would you like to take a few minutes to talk about yourself or set this story up, whatever you like?
Well, as you hear from my story, it's a story that informs my life every day. It's about moral courage and how I came to learn about moral courage and the choices I've made in my life to be morally courageous as much as I can, to be an active upstander in my community. And we can't do everything, but we can do as much as our heart allows. And for me, giving is my oxygen. You know, I love the ability to give to others. I have been helped so many times in my life. I have a neuromuscular disease called spinal muscular atrophy, and most people die of this disease before they're 2 years old. And I have just an incredible support team, family and friends who have really cared for me all my life. And so I come from this kind of generosity of spirit that I just think is more fun. Well, it's an honor and pleasure to share my story.
Oh, that was a Zoom blip.
No worries.
Anyway, you were saying.
Well, I'm just, you are so inspiring, Cheryl, in terms of bringing a community together to share stories. And I love this format. And, it's just an honor to be part of a cultural, creative community that is doing more than just promoting their story or whatever it is, but to share and listen and be inspired by each other. So I thank you, and very honored to be here to share my story about my grandparents. So,
well, thank you so much. And it's a very inspiring story. So I look forward to sharing it with our audience. Thank you, Artemis.
Well, it's an honor and pleasure to share my story with you, Cheryl, and your community. My story begins really in the 9th grade. I was given an assignment to interview someone of moral courage. And I came home and I asked my mother, who should I interview? And what is moral courage? And she said, well, go talk to your grandmother. And little did I know, my grandmother had rescued hundreds, if not thousands of lives during the Holocaust. She'd risked her own life to go to Prague with her husband in 1939, and for 9 months help countless numbers of people get out of Prague who would have been killed. And then it really changed her life, and it changed my grandfather's life. And the two of them were forever changed in terms of not just the impact that they could have in the world, but more importantly, what they needed to do to save lives right now. And so after coming home and, you know, having these incredible stories of what they had been through, they were asked to go back again. And they go back a second time in 1940 to southern France and rescue countless other numbers of people, and establish for the first time the Underground Railroad for rescue during World War II. And if you know the story of Casablanca, this is the true story of Casablanca. This is the love story of my grandparents who risked their lives to help others. And then, you know, many, many years later, struggled with their own relationship, their marriage, and then divorced. And then when I was a child, I never knew them as a couple. I never knew them as a husband and wife. And it was really in the hearing of this story and the sharing of my grandmother's attempt to be morally courageous that I began to see what they were like together, their love affair, their kindness to each other, their incredible synergy of hard work. And really, they did whatever they could to rescue a life. So it was something where, to this day, I ask myself, what would Martha do? You know, what would Waisel do? And they are my kind of moral harbingers of conscience, because, you know, to go and put yourself at that kind of risk for others is also among the most beautiful things you could ever experience in life, is to be of use, to be of purpose, to be in a position where you can really help others. And I think so much of our lives, we don't help others the way they need to be helped. And I love your title for this, you know, how do we help each other? How do friends help each other? And I think a lot of it is being a cheerleader, being a support, being a believer in someone's vision. In this case of rescuing lives, it was, you know, whatever they could do. So each person was unique. And I'm so grateful for the chance to share the story. I'm so glad that people know about my grandparents' work. You can read about it in my book, Defying the Nazis, or the film I made with Ken Burns called Defying the Nazis, on Amazon, and enjoy. It's an incredible story of American history and of what ordinary people can do to help others.
Yeah, thank you, Artemis. I know I've seen that documentary a few times now, and I am strongly inspired every time I see it about finding the courage within ourselves to help others and seeing what they risked to help so many at that time. So I highly recommend seeing that film that is connected to PBS. And I think I highly recommend all the films you're involved with. It's about 5 or so, maybe more, as well as your new book. And that was just released. Is that my understanding? Yeah.
Yeah, the new book is actually not Raising the Bar. It is The Gift. Raising the Bar was released in 2006. This my new book is on Amazon. It's called The Gift, and it's all about how our disability or our challenges in life inspire us to overcome them, but also be bigger than them, and to you know, see your disability is a gift of life.
Yeah. Well, I will put that on my summer reading list as well. And thank you so much for sharing your story and all of the other stories of your family and people around the world, really, too. Thank you, Artemis. And now, looking at the lineup coming in tonight from London, we have Freya Proudman. Hello, Freya.
Hiya, Cheryl. How are you?
I am doing well. I'm delighted that you are here with the lineup this evening. I know there's a lot going on. You have been so busy because I am on the Hopkinton Freedom team with you. So I get to know you and all the things you do out in the world to be friends to so many. So I thank you for making time because I know it's late there, right? It's past midnight.
Yeah, it's coming up about 1 a.m, but
Oh.
I'm so grateful to be here. Cheryl, you do so much for me. So yeah, thank you, Cheryl, for having me. Thanks, HCAM. Thanks everyone for being here. Really excited to be part of it.
Well, I'll just tell people a little about you before we hear from you that Freya has lived in Hopkinton since 2010 and is 21, just graduated, and congratulations with a BA in History, Politics, and Economics from UCL in London, and about to get started with a double master's in comparative Russian and Eurasian politics. And Freya is a first-generation US immigrant originally from South Wales. And Freya identifies as LGBTQIA+ and loves to study and learn more about LGBTQIA+ related things and to do research on the treatment of it in communities. And there's a big event coming up that Freya is deeply involved with. So could you tell a little bit more about yourself and about the big event?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Cheryl kind of covered my life story. Yeah, like Cheryl said, I'm born in South Wales. I moved to the US when I was a small child, so I immigrated. When I was 18, I became a US citizen, which was really exciting. Happened to be on my 18th birthday, coincidentally. Great birthday. Yeah, like Cheryl said, I identify as a queer person. I'm also a member of the Hopkinton Freedom team, which is how I met Cheryl. And Cheryl has been a big supporter of me, myself personally, and my journey. And that's why it's so amazing to be able to be here today and share this with her further. Because I'm a queer person, I mostly work on the Freedom team's LGBTQIA+ related projects. So things like we hosted a workshop with Out Metro West back in the fall. Smitha, another member, and I are working on a big Love is Love mural to be installed in the middle of Hopkinton, which is awesome. The peace flags that are now hanging outside Town Hall this month was part of our initiatives. And lastly, like Cheryl says, a big event. We are hosting Hopkinton's first LGBTQIA+ Pride Parade next Saturday. I cannot believe I get to say that. It's a collaboration between the Freedom Team and the Youth Commission. And honestly, a collaboration between everybody in town because it has really taken a village. Like Jaya said earlier, it takes a village, and it has definitely taken a village to get this on. So I wanted to just say quickly, please come. Everybody is invited. You can find more information out on the Hopkinton Freedom Team website. It's www.hopkinsonfreedomteam.org. Everyone is welcome. Tickets are kind of recommended in advance. They are free, but it just helps us to keep a number of how many people are coming, so that way we can prepare adequately for all the people. But yes, it's going to be an amazing event. We are so pleased. In terms of going into my story, because I know I've only got 2 minutes and I am somebody who likes to ramble, so I will keep going. My story is actually about my flat. So I've been living in central London for 3 years now, and I don't really want to talk too much about me because the story is about my friends, or in the UK we say my mates are my friends. I live in a flat that is currently falling apart. It has had 101 issues of like black mold, mice, getting electrocuted from the electricity, and unfortunately we had to take our landlord to court to pursue this. And so I really wanted to talk about how what makes a house a home isn't the building, it's not the walls, it's not the floor, it's who you live with, and how living with my friends over the course of the past year has made sort of living in a flat that's dropping apart a little less painful, especially in the pandemic, because all we've been is stuck inside. So it's a bit of a lighthearted, kind of funny story that I just thought would be a little bit different to share. So Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you, Freya. I know after seeing this story, I felt like, oh, I wish I was there during the COVID pandemic. So let's take a look at your story.
Hi, everybody. My name is Freya, and I'm really excited to be here to share a little story about how my friends helped get me through the last year. I'm going to tell a story about my house, a tiny little flat in the middle of central London, and how what makes a house a home is really who you live with. And I'm very grateful that over the last year, I've had the chance to live with my best friends. A year that's been really hard for a lot of people, but it was made just that little less painful because I had really special people that I lived with. This is my flat. As you can see, it's probably not the nicest flat you've ever seen, and you would be right. It's a very old flat that hasn't had a lot of work done on it in a while. The whole flat, to say the truth, is falling apart slowly around us. But what makes a house a home is not the building you live in, it's who you live with. And living with my best friends this year has been massive for me. Because of the COVID pandemic, we have spent the whole year just in this flat, never leaving. The only places you were allowed to go in the UK were the supermarket or the pharmacy. University, it was our senior year of university, and we didn't step foot on university campus once. Everything was cancelled. Everything had to be done from home. So I lived my whole life for 6 months inside a 3-bedroom flat. We don't have a car. We don't have anywhere to go. And this is just how we survived it. And we survived it together. So what did we do? We celebrated every holiday there was to celebrate. You know, there was nothing to do, nowhere to go, but all the same, we made memories. So this is us on Halloween. We got dressed up. We completely did our face paint as if we were going out or doing something fun. But no, we just did our face paint so that we could sit in the kitchen and have a laugh. And then we watched Rocky Horror Show in Ellie's bedroom because that's just what you do on Halloween, isn't it? It gave us a sense of normality, and it gave us a sense of connection to each other, and a little sense of, you know, all day we spent all day working on uni stuff and our homework and everything, but in the evening it gave us a sense of family and a sense of that we weren't alone and we weren't detached from everything. And it was senior year, we wanted to make memories, and we did it in a way that we could. There we are, carving pumpkins in the kitchen for Halloween. This was Thanksgiving. We made a whole Thanksgiving dinner for our flat. We spent all day cooking it. Ellie, who's from North England, learned how to make cornbread and all these American recipes just so we could have this really special day together, all our friends in our building. All these pictures are in our kitchen. You never know. We did not leave the house for 6 months. Again, at Christmas, here we are decorating ugly sweater cookies. For New Year's Eve, again, we decorated the kitchen and we played board games and we, you know, rung in the new year together. This was my birthday. Ellie baked all these little things, these brownies, biscuits, sandwiches, and we all sat there again at the kitchen table. You'd never know that this is the inside of our flat that was falling apart, because there's so much love here. There's so much love and so much joy and happiness in these pictures because we lived with each other and we did not let each other be alone this year. We took care of each other in our flat. Again, Valentine's Day, looking gorgeous. This is St. David's Day, which is the biggest holiday in Wales. So myself and Finn are actually from Wales, and we baked Welsh cakes together, which is a traditional food that you eat in Wales, and we baked them in a heart shape, which is just so wholesome and lovely. And then we all packed into Ellie's room so we could live stream a Welsh concert. Ellie's bedroom became the unofficial living room of the flat. We'd all used to pack into her bed as if we were the family in the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. We watched every Zac Efron movie there is and then ranked them all. On Tuesday nights, we used to all get together in Ellie's room to watch Bake Off, Great British Bake Off, which is a baking show. It's very good. I recommend. And on Thursday nights, we used to watch RuPaul's Drag Race together religiously. And this is what got us through, because usually, you know, if we were at university, we would be going out and doing things and seeing friends and doing stuff, and we couldn't this year. We had to live our whole senior years from home, and this is how we made the most of it. You know, after a full day of university work, you don't want to be doing more university work. You need a way to blow off steam. So our Zac Efron marathons and everything got us through. We had pizza nights, takeout nights. As you can see, like I said, our flat is kind of slowly falling apart, which means the foundations are cracking and mice are unfortunately getting in. But as you can see, we got through it together. We made the best of everything. And now this was horrible at the time, as you can imagine, but now we look back at it as a laugh because there's Henry with the stick and Ellie's there, and we're all sitting on her bed cowering at this like tiny little mouse that we happened to name Terrence in the end of the day. And we got through it together. We made the year less hard for us all because we shared those memories together. You know, we survived the mouse. We survived everything that happened with our flat. So yeah, here you go. This is our flat, but don't judge what you see on the outside, because what you see on the outside is a building that's falling apart, but on the inside, that house is full of love, and it's because of my friends.
Yeah, thank you, Freya. A wonderful story about a house, a home full of love for you this past year with your friends, including Terrence. And, you know, love seems to be a theme. I know you are studying expansive areas related to the world, global relations, and government politics, and so forth. But love is always in your vocabulary, I notice, which is so important for our world going forward. So imperative at this point. So I vote for you already, whatever you're going into forward. And, you know, I'll say, and I'm looking forward to the Pride Parade, and I thank you for organizing it for our Hopkinton, our town of Hopkinton. And I was just telling someone in the next town, Holliston, who was excited and wants to merge next year. So who knows, you know, maybe we'll just keep going that way. And I'll say also about love that I was in DC a couple years ago, and outside at a cafe. I've written this story, and a woman and her friend had been to an event related to the Pride weekend, Pride Parade, and got out of her car, and the music was blasting, and it was a residential kind of quiet place where she could get out and dance in the middle of this private street with this great music. And a police car came up right behind her, and all the people on the sidewalk are wondering what's going to happen. And the police, she just moved aside, kept dancing, and the cruiser just passed by, was kind of smiling. And then the next thing, she's looking at us smiling, and over on the sidewalk cafe comes over, puts her arm out and invites me to dance with her. You know, two strangers, we know nothing about each other. And it was one of the best moments of my life. And so much so that I wrote about it. Don't remember a dance move I did, but it was a blast being in dance bliss with a total stranger. So I think that this is an event of love, just like the work you do. And I want to thank you, Freya. And feel free to go to sleep whenever you need, okay?
Thank you so much. Yeah, just to say, when I was 10 years old, my favorite movie has always been Moulin Rouge. I don't know if anyone's familiar. And there's a quote in it that says, "The greatest thing you'll ever learn is just to love and be loved in return." And, you know, since I saw that movie, that has just guided me through life. So once you allow yourself to just love and love so fully, it's everything. And, you know, love and people are the greatest things that we have. So we have to celebrate them. So thank you for having me. Good night, everybody. I will be off to bed, but take care, and I'll watch all the videos later.
Okay, well said. Thank you, Freya. Well, and now moving on. We've had, I think we're halfway or a little bit more through our stories. And they are just going everywhere, right? Around the world and inside and outside of us. And I am so delighted to have Kelly Jenkins here now joining through Zoom. I see you through the camera. Hi, Kelly. And yeah, I have in my notes before reading the bio that you sent that I have found you from all my co-hosting of True Storytelling, one of the most powerful natural storytellers that I've ever heard, with so much in-depth wisdom and deep caring for our world, to become also more loving place for all of us to be free to be our authentic self, who we are, right? And so I'm so happy you're here for this last program. And a couple of the things that I have on your bio is that Kelly is a middle school educator in Worcester, and she is the owner of 2 senior citizen dogs I have in your bio, and a professional disc golfer. And in the note, it says you should research disc golf if you don't know what it is. And also that Kelly is host producer of award-winning Kelly's Quest, the Transnational Journey, which is affiliated with Acton Cable TV, and a wonderful program. And so I wonder if you want to talk a little bit about that program, your last episode you mentioned excited about, as well as this story about your friend who was an ally.
Yes, first, thank you so much, Cheryl, for putting this on. Part of the reason that I have become I've become better at storytelling is you have offered us the platform to perform. And I didn't know that I was a storyteller, and I didn't know the power of storytelling until you kind of gave me the opportunity. I remember working up the courage and standing up at your talk at one of your presentations one night, and storytelling moves the world. And for you to give us the chance to tell our story to move the world is so important. And I feel that my 2 senior citizen dogs may very well interrupt us at some point, just so you know. They have been a little bit happy today, and I apologize ahead of time if that happens. But I want to talk about how storytelling for me impacted my life when I moved to Massachusetts. I'm from East Tennessee originally. And when I moved up here as a transgender woman, I was lost and I needed to find my way in the world. And people kept asking me to tell my story because they saw something in me that I didn't see, that I didn't know existed. And as I started telling my story to people, I learned that some people didn't want to hear my story, Cheryl. Some people don't want to learn about the transgender community. Some people don't want to broaden their horizons. And I don't know, there's a plethora of reasons why people don't want to learn about the community. But the story that you're going to be hearing about is where one person did not like hearing my story about my authentic self, and a friend stepped in for me in a big way to save me so that I wouldn't have to fight this fight once. And the latest episode of our show talks about how other people can come together to help you to fight a fight when you are no longer able. And it has a lot to do with the latest episode. We flew down to North Carolina back in April, and we filmed down there right after 2 trans women had been murdered in the state of North Carolina. And we were talking with people that were trying to help the community heal from this and to also feel safe. And so this episode, the North Carolina episode, talks about how the religious community came together to help, how the police departments came together, how all of these different communities came together to help that ordinarily might be adversaries with one another. And this episode of mine kind of touches on how do you navigate people not wanting you to be your authentic self. And if I can just quickly say, Happy Pride Month, everybody.
Yeah. Thank you, Kelly. And thank you for the courageous and important work you are doing for our world, which is also, it's about freedom and all of us to be thinking about the importance of every person being authentic and true to who they are, and also about love.
I think that's the greatest you can give to the world, is to be your authentic self.
Yeah. So thank you. And thank you for your story about your friend who decides to step forward as ally for you.
Okay, one quick thing.
Yeah.
You were going to ask me. You asked me, why do I think my friend was willing to help me in this situation?
Yeah, that's right. Mm-hmm.
And I want to say it's a very simple reason. She believed me. Cheryl, when I told her that this story that you're about to happen, when I told her that this happened, she believed me. And she knew me as a friend that I was in pain. And so she didn't question it, which a lot of times when people that are marginalized tell their story, people don't want to believe it.
Mhm.
And so I was eternally grateful that she believed it. And that's why she did this for me. She
Mhm.
loves me. She believed me.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And let's take a listen to the story of friendship and helping one another. Thank you, Kelly. Okay, so Mike. Good. Just waiting for a minute for this story. And sometimes with Zoom, there is a little glitch, and it is a powerful story. So let's see, calling Mike. All right, let's see. Still waiting. I can call Mike through chat. But Kelly, I want to go right to your story from here.
Just,
And
I did a video, but would you like for me to just tell it, I guess? Since
no, I want to see it. And Mike, are you there? Okay, so how about while I am contacting Mike, if you can tell me what is up for your summer. I know you're always going somewhere with your project of the transnational journey, and then we'll get back to your story when I find where this story is.
Okay. So for those people that don't know, in 2015, I started a TV show at Acton Public Access Television, and the show has evolved over time. Originally, it was just a studio show where I would sit down and I would talk with transgender people and our allies to get our stories, because I learned growing up that I didn't have any role models. I didn't have any mirrors as a trans person that I could say, oh, I can become that person when I grow up. So I decided to become that mirror. So I created a TV show that was a studio show. And over time, it has evolved into what I call the transnational journey. And the mission is 50 states, 50 stories. We are traveling to all 50 states in the nation, and we're going to interview amazing transgender people and the work that they're doing in each state. And this project started off as a dream with a friend of mine sitting around saying, how can we expand what we're doing? How can we make a bigger impact? How can we tell more stories? And we hit on the idea of combining my two biggest passions on the planet. Disc golf, which I'm a professional disc golfer, which I'm actually the first openly transgender woman to be a member of the Professional Disc Golf Association. So a lot of times transgender people, we are just the first at something because we were brave enough to be our authentic self. And so I go around to all of these states, and so far, Cheryl, we have filmed in 10 states. We have filmed all of New England except for Maine. We have filmed Pennsylvania, New York State, New Jersey, and North Carolina. And the North Carolina episode just came out, like I was saying. We filmed the New Jersey episode about a month ago, and we're editing it right now. And we're hoping to have it come out this month to celebrate Pride also. Because I feel like that Pride is something that in our community is needed at times. And we have to see it we have to see it within ourselves, and we have to see the pride within others also.
Yeah, well, thank you for the work you do, for the voice you use and your story in helping also to be an ally to so many. And I think our story is ready now. So let's
Hello,
take
everyone.
a look.
My name is Kelly Jenkins. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm a white transgender woman with long dark hair. I'm sitting with my trans pride flag proudly displayed behind me. I want to thank my friend Cheryl for asking me to be a part of this wonderful program. I appreciate her belief in me. I'm fortunate to have friends that believe in me when I may or may not believe in myself. Sometimes belief in yourself can begin a journey, but it takes others believing in you to turn that journey into a quest. Here is a story of friends helping me to not only get by in life, but to also thrive. In 2014, I packed my 4-door Honda Civic with my 2 dogs and cat and anything else I could fit in the car and made the 955-mile move from Tennessee to Massachusetts in the hopes of making a fresh start. I didn't know a soul up here, but my hobby of disc golf has a built-in community and I soon made friends. As coincidence would have it, one of the people I met on the course, Mark Ducey, happened to be the executive director of Acton TV's public access television station. As we got to know one another, I shared my story with Mark. As I shared my story with him, he saw something in me that I was unaware existed, a talent to move hearts and minds through storytelling. That led me to being host-producer of the award-winning television show Kelly's Quest and a fierce advocate for trans youth. Then, in 2018, a statewide ballot question in Massachusetts was introduced to strip away civil rights for transgender people. My advocacy work kicked into overdrive. I traveled the state, bearing my soul in the hopes of moving hearts and minds to vote to keep transgender people's rights in place. The disc golf course was the one place where I could escape the pressure of the ballot question and just be plain old Kelly Jenkins. Or at least that's what I thought. I soon learned that bigotry and transphobia can find me anywhere. One evening after the weekly disc golf league at Devon's ended, I was approached by a man, his wife, and their adult son. We were the only people left in the parking lot. Apparently, they felt the need to let me know that they were going to vote against my rights, and they supported everything the federal government was doing to remove protections for transgender people. Needless to say, I didn't take too kindly to this. They began to raise their voices at me, and I left the course that night in tears. I was broken, tired, emotionally beat down, and was at a loss on what to do. I reached out to a friend, and through the sobs, I told her the story. Now, a friend could do any number of things after hearing my story. Her reaction was to be a true ally and call out the community and the individuals for not being there for me. She took the metaphorical body blows of transphobia and bigotry that came at her while I was off healing in the woods. People contacted me, furious that she was being so protective of me and wanted me to make her stop. I didn't. She was there for me in a way no friend has ever been and possibly ever will be. I let the world know how grateful and thankful I am for her, and let her know I am eternally grateful for what she did for me. She allowed me the space to heal and helped me reclaim my fighting spirit. I love you, friend. Oh, and the people who confronted me at the course, they ended up apologizing to me, as did the Devon's disc golf community. Maybe the disc golf course is my escape after all. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. And that is a beautiful story of friendship. And I thank your friend also. And so sorry to hear about the hardship and harm that you have dealt with being yourself and all others of the transgender community. And thank you for all the activism you do on behalf of the LGBTQ community as well. And for your work as a teacher and all you do for young people also.
I had 3 trans students this year, and this might be the only time they ever have a trans teacher that they can see in their entire life. So I'm very grateful that I got to do that. But thank you for tonight, Cheryl. I really do appreciate this.
All right. Well, you have a good restorative summer and take care of those senior citizen dogs of yours too. They're
so
friend
well.
house.
I'm so proud of them.
Yeah. All right. Take care. Thank you. Now I'd like to interview Molly Watt, coming in from Cambridge, Massachusetts, with her husband, Dan. Hello, Molly and Dan Watt. Oh, Dan's kind. Oh, he's hiding.
Hi.
Well, that's okay. Whatever you wish for your time, share your story, Molly. It's great to have you on tonight. Thank you. And I just wanted to share some news that I have for you with our audience tonight. I didn't know this. I've known you from writing community and poetry community as well. And congratulations, because Molly indicates that she is a great grandmother during the pandemic. And her granddaughter is Iris, who's 1 year old and can walk, but she, as Molly notes, she can't walk from Dublin, Ireland to see her great grandmother yet. But congratulations to you and Iris over in Dublin. Molly also indicates she's been a teacher since she was second grade, always loving teaching the neighborhood children, and continuing to be an educator for people of every age. And Molly and her husband, Dan, over to the side, are co-founders of a co-housing community in Cambridge, where they have lived for 23 years with 90 residents, ages 1 to 96. And Molly, to know also about Molly, that she writes poems, memoir, stories for newspapers, and most recently finished a play with her husband, Dan, for 2 characters set in the period of the Spanish War. Was that?
Spanish Civil War.
Spanish Civil War, I'm sorry.
Just before World War II.
Wow.
Stop.
That ran off the paper here. So yeah, so you have been busy over there. Oh, and you play the ukulele together. You're a citizen scientist. You got a lot going on over there in Cambridge. And so what would you like to talk about for people to get to know a little bit more about you?
Cheryl, it's so wonderful of you to invite me and include me in this. I first met you at the William Joyner Institute for the Study of War and the Social Consequences of War, where I also got to be good friends with Teresa, who was such a wonderful surprise. She was telling her story tonight. And when you first talked to me about this back in the winter, I think, you said it was about kindnesses we received. And so I spent a lot of time thinking about kindnesses I received, and having 3 minutes to tell my story. I took one of the more simple but wonderful ones, but I want to put a larger context around it, because it's not, you know, Kelly took the journey from East Tennessee to Cambridge. Well, I took the journey from Cambridge to East Tennessee and went to jail in the civil rights movement there. So I've had a long time of working for social justice and so on. And my granddaughter, Lydia, who is now 30 and getting a doctorate, but when she was about a freshman in high school, said, "Grandma, I know why you formed a co-housing community. You've always been against war. You've always wanted people to help each other out. And you're not sure if it's even possible in this world. Can people get along well? And that's why you're forming this community." And I thought, yes, Lydia really has my number. I'm really trying to see, can we learn to solve the issues that come up among ourselves in fair ways, in loving ways, in just ways? And that's been and so that everyone has a voice and feels comfortable. Well, I'll tell you, we can do some of that, but we can't do all of that yet. We haven't learned to do all of it in our community yet, but we do a lot of it, and it's wonderful. So my story tells about a time when it seems a very simple story. It's something that could happen to anyone. Every single person has a birthday every year in this world. And it's not always celebrated, but I like to celebrate mine, and I like to take responsibility. Usually I give a dinner party for my friends, and, I cook all day and give them something nice. So This is a story, and you'll hear what it's about, but where my trust in this beautiful community got broken.
All
It
right.
got broken, and someone took personal responsibility without letting me know, without having to find out who had done wrong, just took responsibility for being kind to me.
Yeah.
And I was the recipient.
Yeah.
Is
Wow.
that enough? Is that enough?
Yes, that's terrific. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Let's take a look at your story now. Thank you, Molly.
Hello. This is a story about kindness. It's a story about the kindness of two people who don't know each other, and it's a kindness towards me, a kindness that just came my way. I am 83 years old, and birthdays continue to be very important to me. Are they important to you? I bet they are. And I have a very special thing that has been happening for 40 years near my birthday. I get a package, usually in the mail. I don't count on it. It's not a promise, but it has come every year for more than 40 years from a friend of mine named Claudio, who used to share a home with my husband Dan and myself and our two daughters. Later, he moved to Indiana, and he continued the tradition he started when he lived with us. About my birthday is January 9th. It's just after New Year's, Christmas, Kwanzaa, all the different holidays. And sometimes people are tired of birthdays by then. And so I make a special effort to make mine special so I won't feel disappointed. And this is one of the things that makes it special. A box comes, a priority mailbox comes, and I open it up, and inside it has butcher paper or newspaper wrapped around this circle in it. And when I open up the circle, it is a linzatort. A linzatort is made of cinnamon and clove and lemon and orange and almonds and sugar and butter. And I guess it should be everybody's favorite cake. And 2 years ago, I got it and I put it in a shared refrigerator for our condo. And I put my name on it and the date and so on, and it was fine. I went down to get it the night before my birthday when my family or friends would be sharing, and it had vanished. And I was heartbroken because this was the centerpiece of what my birthday seemed to be these days. And I sent an email to my community saying, my linzatort for my birthday is missing. About 2 minutes after midnight that night, I got an email from one of the oldest members of our community, a woman in her 90s named Mary Ann. And she said, I am taking a linzatort out of the oven right now, and I'll bring it over tomorrow. So the next day, Mary Ann came over beaming with this beautiful linzatort as a gift for me and my family and friends that she had made. And I just was overwhelmed. I said, Mary Ann, I didn't know you even knew how to make a linzatort. She said, I know how to use the internet. I know how to read. And I knew you needed a linzatort. And so these two people made a kindness to give me a beautiful birthday. Claudio for making the linzatort and starting the tradition and keeping it going for a chain of 40 years. And Mary Ann making up for what someone in the world did that wasn't quite right, to be kind to me, just out of kindness. Both of them were being very, very kind to me, and I was the happy recipient. I hope you have happy birthday memories too.
Yeah, thank you for that beautiful story of an act of kindness from Marianne. And all of these stories are so important, right, for shifting our world and thinking about connecting and helping one another. And thank you for all the ways, the work you've done in your life and your writing too, in wanting for a better world and more caring world too. And hope you get to see Iris sometime soon in the near future of this world. Congratulations and thank you. I think I'll celebrate after tonight. I'll think about Linzer Tort and Long Island iced tea. All right, bye, Molly. And now our last guest in the gallery, and then we have two more stories for folks who couldn't come here tonight. But our next story is with Catherine Weber in the house, coming from Southborough. Hello, Catherine.
Hi, Cheryl. Thank you for having me tonight.
Yeah, I'm glad you can be here. And I always enjoy your stories, never know where they're going to go, and love receiving this one. And so for people to know about you, Catherine, I'll just say a few words. That you've been in Southborough for 24 years. Yes. And work as a marketing professional, but also, or not, but in addition, is a beautiful, gifted visual artist and poet, and is director of art on the trails, mother of 20-year-old Ben, and someone who's passionate about art and the environment together. And I know that art on the trails is a big part of your life, of passion, of art and environment coming together. I wonder if you want to talk a little bit about that.
Yes, thank you. So it's the 5th year of Art on the Trails, and I can't even tell you how grateful I am for the opportunity that I have to create this amazing art installation in a nature preserve in Southborough. The land is called Beals Preserve, and it's a 55-acre nature preserve that's owned by the Southborough Open Land Foundation. And they asked me 5 years ago, put some art on the trail. So I went and I bought the domain name artonthetrails.com quick before anybody else. And then I got jurors, and I asked for submissions, and it started off slow, but what an incredible show every year, and what a powerful event it is for us all, because after the art is installed, we have poets come and write poetry about the art, and we publish a gorgeous book, and it just grows. And I have an amazing team of people who help me do this. And frankly, if I didn't have this during the pandemic, there were so many people who couldn't see art because all the galleries were closed. And it was such a powerful thing, especially in 2020. And I recommend everybody come down to Southborough and check it out. It will bring you joy.
Well, it's a great idea. No, it just opened up, and so we can find out more about it where?
artonthetrails.com.
All right. Well, congratulations. And the theme, there's a theme, right?
Every year there's a theme, and this year's theme is mending, which is related to kintsugi, which is a Japanese art form of mending pottery with gold. So when things are broken and we heal, maybe they're stronger and more beautiful. And that's what the theme mending is about this year. And it was so powerful to so many people that we got 3 times the normal submissions than we've ever had. And in fact, I had to decline almost 50 people who submitted. I know, including, by the way, I didn't get in either. And that shows you that it's really a blind submission process. But I took such joy. This past week, I had an artist living with me who was weaving a giant web over the pond in a kayak for 7 days. And they then flew a drone over it to show this beautiful it was like a crocheted web across a pond. Wow. That's just one of many amazing installations, and totally worth a visit.
So people have to check it out, look on the website and go there and take a look in nature.
Yes.
And I know your story is about art and also about your mother.
My
for
mother,
this
who
theme.
is my friend.
Yes, yes. So let's take a look and see what happens here. Thank you, Catherine.
Sure.
This is a COVID story about my mom and I. So after we were hit with COVID and we were quarantined, my mother quarantined on the shoreline in Connecticut, and I being quarantined here in Southborough, Massachusetts. I realized I wouldn't possibly see my mother for a while. And as a few months went by, it got very frustrating because I felt really lost without seeing her face and being able to hug her. And so I got the idea that we should do a FaceTime painting night. And I never thought it would go on for very long because who knew how long the pandemic was going to last. But about a year ago, we started having Tuesday night painting sessions, and every Tuesday at 7:30, we'd get on FaceTime, and sometimes I'd set up a still life and put my camera to it so she could paint the same thing I was painting. Sometimes we would do different things. And, you know, it became a regular thing that we did every single week. And it was very special because we got to spend about 3 hours with each other, just talking. And she would tell me stories that I'd never heard before. She's 83 years old and she lives alone, and she had this opportunity to tell me things she had never thought of telling me before. And one night she got up to go pour water in the sink from her paint jar, and she fell down. She fell on the floor. So I was still on FaceTime on the dining room table, and I saw her fall and heard her kind of crying on the floor. And I was very panicked. I asked her if she was hurt, and she just kept crying. And then I just started seeing her arm waving on the edge of the table. So she's on the floor, but her arm is raised up and she's waving it. And I said, "Mom, why are you waving your arm?" And she said, "Because my Apple Watch is set to call an ambulance if I fall. So I need to wave my arm so that it doesn't call an ambulance." And I said, "Mom, maybe we need to call an ambulance." She said, "Oh no, we're not going to call an ambulance. I'm going to call Mark." So Mark lives across the street. He's a family friend for 40 years. And so I now hear her on the floor calling Mark, and then back up, her arm starts waving again. And in a few minutes, Mark comes in a mask, and my mother gives him instructions. She says, "Mark, go get a plastic garbage bag." And of course, I have no idea what's going on. So Mark does as she asks. "Bring it over here, and I'm going to sit on it, and you're going to pull me across the floor to the railing by the door, and I'll be able to pull myself up from there." So I watch from the dining room table over FaceTime as Mark, in fact, gets a plastic garbage bag. My mother rolls onto it. He pulls her across the floor. And within a few minutes, Mark comes over to the FaceTime iPad and says, "Nice to see you, Catherine." And I said, "Nice to see you, Mark." And my mother sat down as if nothing had happened and started painting again. And that's the end.
Oh, I hope your mother is watching, Catherine, and I raise my wrist to her. And I thank you so much. And thank goodness for good neighbors and friends like Mark also.
Yes, yes. And you know, all in unison, folks.
Thank you so much, Catherine.
Thank you for having me, Cheryl.
All right. See you on the trails.
All right.
All right. So we have two more stories. These storytellers are not with us tonight, but they will be watching. They had other commitments. And I want to share the next story from Karen Gabler. I just heard about her story last Sunday, and it involves friendship related to a robin and her mother. And to tell you about Karen, she lives in Melrose, and Karen is a myofascial release practitioner who helps people align, balance, and heal. And myofascial release is a type of physical therapy used to treat this type of pain syndrome. And in addition to this work, Karen is working presently on a book titled Your Body's Brilliant Design to introduce a revolutionary approach to relieving chronic pain, which is part of her life work. Karen also notes she loves to write and be in nature around her family. She loves to be and with her friends. And she said, well, her friends will offer sometimes, it seems, the two of these interesting ways of getting together in nature and with family and friends. And you'll see this happen in her story now. So let's see what happens for Karen, a robin, and her mother.
My name is Karen Gabler, and I am 69 years old, and I live in Melrose, Massachusetts. I am a body worker and healer. My name is Karen Gabler, and I am 69 years old, and I live in Melrose, Massachusetts. I am a body worker and healer. I am writing my memoir right now, and I have always gotten through life with the help from my friends. I don't think I'd be where I am without a little help from my friends. So this is a story about a message from a robin. And I think she may be my friend. My mother was born a generation too early. In her generation, women were expected to be good wives, good mothers, good housekeepers, and caretakers. And she did it beautifully and dutifully. She was a really bright woman. She was highly educated, capable, competent. And when she was offered a prestige job, my dad said, no wife of mine's going to work outside the home. He was too proud. So I watched my intelligent, beautiful mother get frustrated and watched her spirit be crushed by my alcoholic, charming father. It was hard to watch, and I encouraged her to leave my father when I was older, but she never did. The only thing that set my mother free was death. And she had asthma and other medical conditions, so it was hard for her to breathe, and she died of pulmonary failure. I also know what it's like to not be able to breathe. I have asthma as well. And I married a man who was an alcoholic. The difference between me and my mother was I divorced my husband. And after that divorce, it was grueling, but I felt free. I really felt free. Now, after my mother's death, we were both born in May, spring. And every time I saw a robin, I would think of my mother. And I walked in this woods behind my house for years and years. And it was my sanctuary where I grounded, where I became close to nature and took time to reflect and be still. So I was walking in the woods this beautiful May day. It was my 62nd birthday. It was coming up in a few days. And I went to my lookout rock, which was off the path, and looked out over this beautiful, calm pond. And as I sat on the rock there, I heard this fluttering in the bushes, this rustling. And I thought, oh, it's a chipmunk and it's scurrying away, but it continued. So I went over to the sound and I parted the branches and I saw a robin tethered to a branch with a fishing line wrapped around its neck. And it could not get free. It was terrified. And I loosened the fishing net from the branch, and then I had a robin on a leash. And if I let it go, then the robin would fly away and get tangled up again. And I couldn't do that to her. So I gallantly took her in my hands and I said, I got to get that fishing net off your neck. So I tried to loosen it and it was so tight, so tightly wound that I couldn't budge it. I said, I need some tools. So tweezers and little scissors, they were half a mile away at my house. So I took that robin in my hand and I walked that half mile. And the whole time I talked to her and said, you're going to be free. I'm going to help you. You're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. You're going to be free. I'm going to free you. And I came into my house, went to the bathroom, grabbed the tweezers and the scissors from the bathroom cabinet, and I went right out into my backyard where there's a big grassy field. And I sat down with that robin in my hand and I tried to cut it with the scissors, but it was so tight I couldn't even get the scissors underneath. And then I took the tweezers and it took minutes to unwind that fishing line from around her neck. And I finally got her free and I put her down on the grass. And she didn't fly away. She hopped a few times and then she looked back at me and she hopped again. And I thought, oh no, she can't fly. Maybe she's injured and she'll never be able to fly. What am I going to do? And then she hopped again and she hopped until she came to a tree and flew up into the lower branches of this tree in my backyard. And she looked back at me and she sang and she flew away. And I said, Robin, you're free. You're free. And then I said to my mom, you're free, Mom. You're free. I'm free. We're both free. We're free. We're not going to be tethered. We're not going to be entangled. We're free. And today is the 30th anniversary of my mother's death. And this story is in honor of her.
Yeah, thank you, Karen. And a really powerful, heartfelt story. And I appreciate Karen sharing it with us. And wish her well. And I know she'll be watching this later and is with us in spirit. Now we have one more story for the close of our program, and it has been pretty big and expansive, right? In this one theme of I get by with a little help from my friends and seeing the many ways that the story can be told from many different people of different walks of life. And the last person who is contributor is from Hopkinton, Massachusetts, and just contributed this story hot off the press of his laptop a couple days ago. So I thank David Antaki, who is here with his story, but not able to be introduced. David, I interviewed for another program a few years ago, and he's pretty busy in Texas now at SpaceX. And I'll tell you a little bit more about him. But he says his bio was poetic. And he said he's a Winterland sous bois lover, a Mars dreamer, a technologist, a Shoshin seeker. And when I pressed him for a little bit more, David told me he's a student at Northeastern studying computer science and computer engineering with 3 semesters left. And he's currently interning at SpaceX since January. He's at Starbase facility in South Texas and working primarily on software stuff to launch systems. And he works at a spaceship factory, literally, he said, and the site is near unrecognizable from when I first got here. And that's how fast things happen here. And I get to work with the best, smartest, and most satirical people in the world. And I get to see big explosions. I'm a lucky fellow. And he is sharing a story, not so much from space, but locally from Hopkinton and a previous job that he had one summer. And he wants to acknowledge the friend in this story that he is grateful for in this recounting of an experience is his great friend, Andrew Smith. So let's take a look at David's story.
Got a great little story here back from 2017 about when I used to work at the Hopkinton State Park at the boathouse, renting out boats. Theme is getting a little help from our friends. I think this is a comical little story here. It was towards the end of the day when I was working, and we were tidying up the boathouse like we normally did, getting all the boats in order, getting the boathouse in order, locking up all the boats like we normally do. I was going around the sailboats that were docked on our main dock connected to land, and I was taking out all the centerboards. Now, normally what you do is you swing the boat so that it's right up next to the dock so you can just step in. I decided to go across the bow so I didn't have to swing it. For fun, to make it easier, a little faster. The risk you run with that is capsizing the boat, which in and of itself, not a big deal, We capsize them all the time. You just write it if you capsize it. But with these particular boats, RS Vivas we were trying them out. They're quite light, quite small, not very stable. So I knew this, but I figured I'd give it a go. I gave it a go. As you can imagine, it capsized. Not a big deal. However, I forgot that these boats don't have a float at the top of their mast. And the float at the top of their mast, the mast is the thing straight up that holds the sail. The float at the top of that normally keeps the boat from turtling, which is where the sailboat goes completely 360 upside down and the mast is sticking down. I forgot this key point and was not very fast to try to right the boat. And subsequently, the boat turtled. But, not a big deal. You just unturtle it, uncapsize it. Done it many times. But when I jumped on the bottom of the boat, that was now completely upside down, and I tried to right it, it didn't move. Quite strange. This is quite a light boat. It should uncapsize quite easily. I tried a couple more times. The boat wasn't moving. I had someone else try. Boat wasn't moving. Started to freak out a little bit. What this meant was that the mast was stuck in the mud at the bottom. Because we were near the dock, near the shore, and the water is not very deep there. So the mast was stuck in the rocks in the mud. Now, the problem with that is when you try to right it, you run the risk of bending the mast and or breaking the sailboat and where the mast attaches to the sailboat. So I start to freak out a little bit because these were not cheap boats. RS Vivas are around a little under $8,000. So not great. Luckily, my good pal Andy was on shift as well. He came over and was like, this is a doozy, but we can get it done. Lucky for me, he was on shift. He spent another half hour locking up, closing up shop at the boathouse while I thought about how we would go about uncapsizing it, and I kept trying to uncapsize it. At this point, I started to freak out quite a bit. A lot of cussing occurred because I could have kept it from turtling if I just jumped in the water and held the mast, but I didn't. I forgot that the water was not deep, so the mast could get stuck in the mud. Anyways, after Andy's all done closing up shop, he comes over and comes up with the brilliant idea where we moved the sailboat riskily, since if you move it at all, you run the risk of bending the mast, like I said. But we moved it so that it was right up against the dock, so that someone from on the dock with a line attached to the other side of the sailboat from where they were could pull on that line, while me and Andy were in our motorboat. We got our Mako. Andy swung it around so that we were on the opposite side of the sailboat from where it was on the dock. I was on the bow of the motorboat, and I was going to deadlift up the sailboat to get the mast unstuck while the person on the dock with the line was pulling, so that when I let go and we backed up the motorboat, the sailboat wouldn't just drop and sink back in to the mud, or the mast wouldn't sink back into the mud. Brilliant idea. We did it, and it worked. Thankfully, magically, that worked. Would not have been able to do it with my good pal, Andy. Had a little help from a couple people there to get that boat unstuck and righted, or I would have been out a couple many thousands of dollars.
Well, thank you, David and Andy. Back in time, and maybe better that, that learning of experience happened on a lake with a small boat than, a spaceship to Mars. So very best wishes for the work you're doing, David, and thank you for your story. And that has taken us at the end of our journey. And I know that in this story at the very end, David was parked right at SpaceX and was showing where he was and set off to Mars, which was cool to see from his parked car. So thank you, David. And this is the conclusion of our lineup of 10 really interesting and expansive, different, amazing stories from amazing people this month. And I want to thank all the participants for their contributions of stories, for being here tonight, and to those who couldn't be here. I want to thank for this entire season, Jim Cousins and Mike Tarosian and the HCAM crew who were so helpful for this program going forward. I want to thank all the folks who've been watching, whether live or afterwards. They will continue to be offered on a playlist through YouTube and HCAM TV, even though we are ending this season. And I invite you all to consider the stories, the true stories you have from life, and how they can go out in the world in different ways and help us to understand, feel more connection, and to understand our differences as well as our likenesses through the common ground of our stories. So the goal was to finish before 9 o'clock, and I am thrilled because the plan was to end with one of my favorite original songs by my dear friend Junko Ogawa, who wrote a song that I love titled Hey My Friend. And so I believe we have the footage of Junko performing at another cable studio that we will be able to close with this evening. So thank you, Junko, for your contribution of beautiful song as well. And take care, everyone. Thank you again, and have a good, restorative, and love-filled summer.
Hey, my friend, it was so nice of you. Hey, my friend, to give me helping hand when I was down. There got to be something I can do for you. If you have courage to show you care, you will find kindness on your way. Everybody's born with a heart to give. Everybody lives for love to share. Hey, my friend. Hey, my friend, we both wanna be happy. Hey, my friend, we both been hurt before, we're the same. So much more than different.